Alright guys, this one's going to be a bit of a dark one. I do not mean to offend, but the odds are just stacked too high. Hey y'all, it's your girl, Scribe Not Scribble, and today we are doing another collab video. I have teamed up with the very lovely Inspiration Cove on Instagram, which I strongly recommend that you go and check out because, guess what? Her face looks so much like mine. She also has a website called missamandak.com, which I will be linking in the description. But I'd like to just specify here that this amazing artwork of hers that we're watching her draw today, yeah, it's not linked to anything I have to say at all in today's video. My words are my own, my thoughts are my own, and what I have to say is not intended to speak on the behalf of anyone else except for me. Okay, so what we're going to do is start off by telling a wee little story here, right? Once upon a time, there was a fair and individual land. This land was known to be full of opportunity, full of growth, full of promise. Everyone who came to this land lived a golden life. You could come, get a job, live on just one income, and your life was basically handed to you on a silver platter. And living here was so great, soon other people began to flood the gates to this land here too. Everyone here wanted a piece of this pie. Everyone here wanted to live the dream. And with all these new floods of people, competition started to go up. Supply and demand, as they say. And the more demand there came for what was the very limited supply of this land, the higher its price was risen. And as time passed, soon it wasn't enough to just work hard. You had to have privilege, you had to know all the right people, you had to buy your way in. This was never quite enough though. The floods of people will still keep coming, determined that they could carve a life out for themselves if they just worked away hard enough. So the stakes were raised again. For those who are poor, the amount of support provided quickly dropped down to almost nothing. The costs of more and more items soon flew sky high. Insane amounts of interest were added to things like mortgages and student loans, so that it was now almost impossible to better yourself or even escape. Things like basic human rights became taxed and price tagged to horrific levels and increasingly hard to even obtain in the first place. Gone were the days of fairness and opportunity. Gone were the once ideal promises of a life worth living. It was becoming almost like this once fair land had become cursed, like it had been stolen from the ashes of its predecessors, or founded on the fundamentals of hatred, greed and slavery. And yet still, more people flooded in. Out of sight, darkness and corruption were brewing. This once fair land was now behind the scenes, causing trouble everywhere else. With nowhere else to go, often the people journeying to this once fair land were forced to come because their own homes had been made no more. The stakes kept getting raised higher and higher, and yet the buyers still kept coming. So now the goalposts were getting moved. It wasn't enough now to just work hard, be determined and make sacrifices. You now had to fit an increasingly narrow criteria if you wanted to hold on to your place in society. You had to be a certain skin colour. You had to be the right socio-economic status. You had to be attractive. And to anyone else who wasn't, well, it was just little things at first, like a slow growing of intolerance or subtle dislike. Then it was their credibility and a harsher set of rules that didn't apply to anyone else. Then it was the police brutality. Being cast down to an imagined lower level than everyone else, with their credibility already gone out the window, it was becoming increasingly easier to discriminate and maltreat those who didn't fit into the right box. Even when video evidence was produced, you never dared get in the way of those who made the laws. Anyone who dared speak up were practically shining a light on themselves for humiliation. You became lumped in with the worst of the worst, maltreated, abused. Recently this land has started actually killing people who it deems do not belong, not worth enough by its standards. Well, actually I lie. People have been paying the cost with their lives for a long time now, but it's only now the spotlight of accusation has been getting turned up brighter and brighter. With this country falling in on itself, the darkness cannot necessarily stay hidden forever. Long live the land of the free, the land of war, of poverty, and of sacrifice. A land which can no longer support its citizens and no longer pretends to even want to. Long live a dying land, a cursed land, falling in on itself from the stolen bones from which it came. Long live these lands indeed. How is it you wish to die today, my friend? Simply for being alive, or for fighting against the overbearing corruption? How much does your life really cost?